Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this past week we had the release of iOS 16 Beta 4. We'll talk about when to expect Beta 5 a little bit later. We also had Apple's earnings call where they went over how much money they made over the past quarter, and we're also expecting iPhone 4 in just about a month and a half, so we'll talk about what to expect with the 2022 Apple iPhone event where they'll show off the iPhone 14 and more. This is your news update for the week of August 1st, 2022. And many people have been complaining to me about the dialer in iOS since previous versions where on Android, for example, you can put in your phone number and it will look up a contact. Maybe you're looking for someone, you remember the first three digits, and you want it to sort. Well, someone on Twitter has come up with a new concept, Chris Masterson, and I think this would be a good way for Apple to maybe start to revamp the phone dialer app. So he came up with this concept, and as you can see here, it's got your pinned favorites, your recents, and then more below it. I think this would be great in order to search your contacts. You could search regularly, you could put in the phone number, and I do think it's time for it to get a little bit of a revamp as far as its design. They did add some nice features with iOS 16, but the design seems a little bit old at this time. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. According to Aaron P613 on Twitter, it looks like Beats Fit Pro are getting new colors very soon. He's been pretty accurate in the past, and it looks like we're going to have three colors, umber, ochre, and mica, coming very soon. So if you've been waiting for them, but you wanted maybe a different color, more skin tone type colors, or just more neutral colors, those should be available fairly soon. We don't have an exact date though. Now, TSMC, who manufactures the chipset inside many of the iPhones and the Apple Silicon Macs, has a new plant that they're opening in Arizona soon. They celebrated it being near completion, and it should go into production in 2024. The $12 billion factory should start production around then and manufacture 5nm chips as Apple continues to diversify its chip supply around the world. Now, if you're someone that's been wanting to try Windows 11 but you have an M1 or M2 Apple Silicon Mac, you can now do that in a virtual machine now that you no longer have the boot camp option. There's currently a tech preview from VMware Fusion. You can try it out, and I'll link it in the description. Keep in mind, it's a tech preview. It could still have bugs, but at least you'll be able to try that out if you want to use it, try some Windows 11 features, or maybe you just need to run a program that doesn't run on Apple Silicon yet. So I'll link that in the description. Be sure to check it out if you're interested. Now, Apple had its earnings call this past week, and they had some huge earnings. They had record earnings this time around again. And despite the economic slowdown in many places, it looks like they're continuing to do quite well. For the iPhones and everything else, they came in at $19.4 billion in profits with $83 billion in revenue. iPhone made up $40 billion of that. iPad was $7.2 billion, Mac was $7.3 billion, and wearables, home, and accessories were $8 billion. The surprising thing to me was their overall services, which was $19.6 billion. And they said they have 860 million paid subscriptions individually for all their services. However, those are for services individually, not users. So it's a little bit tricky how they did the numbers there. 860 million subscriptions. Each person could have multiple subscriptions, but there's still hundreds of millions likely to be part of that number. So that's a huge amount of profit. And Tim Cook said that despite reports of slowing down hiring, Apple will continue to hire and just be a little bit more deliberate this way as they need more employees. So maybe not as rapidly, but they are slowing it down a little bit, it seems, and they're doing just well and expect to do even better with the iPhone 14 launch. Apple has been planning an Apple Store for a very long time in India, but unfortunately it looks like they've delayed it again until early 2023, between January and March, according to India's Economic Times. The store is apparently going to be around 22,000 square feet in Mumbai, with a second store planned for New Delhi later at about half that size. So I know a lot of my Indian followers really have been wanting an Apple Store to check out products, have an official place to get repairs done, and more. Hopefully we'll see that sooner rather than later with them expanding throughout the country. Apple is now allowing developers to advertise in different ways to get their apps noticed on the App Store. So one of the ways is in the Today view. You'll start to see different apps showing up here. I don't think it'll look too much different than it does now, but you'll see different apps if they want to advertise here. Another way is maybe we go into this app here, Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, and if we go all the way to the bottom, you'll also start to see advertisements in You Might Also Like. So app developers can advertise here. This is good and bad, as it could disadvantage those that don't have advertising revenue, but hopefully Apple will continue to push little apps as well. So that's something we could start seeing soon, or you may already start seeing in the App Store. A recent regulatory filing in Canada, which has been removed, has actually shown that they're approving AFib history for watchOS 9 in Canada. AFib history allows you to see how often you may have experienced atrial fibrillation and keep track of it if you're over 22 years of age. The feature is new in watchOS 9 and will be limited in different countries based on regulatory approval of that country. So in the Health app, you can see that information if you have it tracking your AFib history. However, I don't actually have that issue personally, but if you do have that issue, you can actually see that tracked here under AFib history. So you can set that up and have it track that if you actually are concerned about it. Now, Apple's yearly iPhone introduction is just over a month away, which is unbelievable. It's gone by so quickly to get to this point, and sites are already predicting what we will see. We know we should have new iPhones, iPhone 14, 14 Plus, 14 Pro, and 14 Pro Max, a new Apple Watch Series 8, AirPods Pro 2 potentially. Of course, iOS 16's launch date will be revealed then, and then also maybe a Mac Pro, Apple TV, and iPads. However, I think with all of those products expected, I would expect a later event where maybe they'll show off Apple AR, VR headsets, and in 2020, we actually had 3 events, so we could have 1, 2, or 3 events. However, based on what we've had in the past, typically those fall on a Tuesday, and we could see that on the 13th. Last year, it was on the 14th, which was a Tuesday also, so around the 13th is when I would expect that event, and then we'll learn when iOS 16 will launch to everyone, and then also, of course, those new iPhones, usually later, maybe a week or 2 later. So that's typically what Apple does. We can expect that very soon, but it's unbelievable that it's already almost that time of year again. Now, as far as apps are concerned, more people have been asking me to cover those, and there's a couple things to note. Twitter, you'll see I have the icon, which is actually black. If you subscribe to Twitter Blue, you can switch that icon out. However, they've raised the price of Twitter Blue from $2.99 to $4.99. So I'll probably be canceling that, and it's the first time they've done that. Also, Instagram recently got an update where they changed the feed to be much more like TikTok. Due to a lot of complaints, it looks like they've rolled that back. And then finally, if you use Firefox on your Mac, it now supports 120 Hz ProMotion displays. So if you have one of the MacBook Pro 14 or 16 inches, you should be able to take advantage of that feature. Last night, the Apple Store went down for a little bit, and when it came back up, they had expanded a deal they already had on Apple TV. And that deal has to do with a $50 gift card that comes along with it. So if you buy an Apple TV 4K, you can now get a $50 Apple gift card when you buy that Apple TV. They've expanded it to more countries: Germany, the UK, France, Italy, and more. Now, also, I wanted to go over deals, as many of you have asked me to cover that. And if you don't want to buy it through Apple, you can get the Apple TV 4K for $119 or $59 off on Amazon as well. So I'll link that in the description. It's an affiliate link. You don't have to click it. You can search for it yourself if you don't want to contribute a little bit, but it's available for a little bit less money. Also, the iPad Air is a little bit off, so if you've been wanting a 5th generation iPad Air, it's $559. The AirPods Pro are still $179, so if you've wanted a pair of AirPods Pro and don't care about AirPods Pro 2 if they launch in a month or 2, you can pick those up for $179.99 now. And probably the best deal is the Apple Watch Series 7. For the aluminum or aluminium version, this is actually the stainless steel, but for the aluminum version, for the 45 millimeter, it's $369 on Amazon. So that's a pretty good deal if you want to pick one of those up. Again, I'll link all of those in the description below. Now, last week, Apple released iOS 16 Beta 4 and Public Beta 2, and usually after Beta 4, we switch to a weekly release schedule. So we could see Beta 5 and Public Beta 3 as soon as Tuesday or Wednesday this week. That's possible, although they could change it up and wait another 2 weeks. So we could either see it this Wednesday or the following Wednesday. I would be surprised if they push it out every other week still, though. Also, we may have an iOS 15.7 beta or an iOS 15.6.1 since that jailbreak is coming out or did come out and is a sort of a security risk, and Apple tends to patch those pretty quickly. So we could see something like that as Apple stops signing iOS 15.5. We may or may not see that, but usually every year by the end of August, we have a final release of the previous version. Last year we had iOS 14.8. So we could see something like that very soon. Now, Apple's been working on M1 iMacs and is still working on a larger iMac, according to Mac Rumors, from a poster named Amethyst, who was the first to report on the Mac Studio. According to Mac Rumors, Apple has been working on them for a while, and prior to August 2021, they used the same design as the discontinued Intel-based 27-inch iMac. Then they worked on a second one that had the same design as the 24-inch iMac, but with a 27-inch display, but an M1 chip. And then the third one around November 2021 used the same design as the 24-inch, but had a 27-inch XDR display with a black finish and an M1 Max chip. That makes a lot of sense, and I would expect one hopefully by the end of this year. Also, according to Mark Gurman, an updated Mac Pro was expected and was ready some time ago. Some months ago it was ready to ship, but Apple decided to wait for the M2 Extreme later this year since they pushed out the M2 with the MacBook Air. So with the MacBook Air and 13-inch MacBook Pro, we have M2. Pushing out a Mac Pro atop of the line with an M1 probably is a bad idea, so they're probably waiting. The same user reported that the Mac Pro would have a 40-core CPU, 32 performance cores, 8 efficiency cores, and a 128-core GPU. The prototype Mac Pro board is also said to include at least one PCIe X16 slot, so it may have some expansion there we don't have with the current Mac lineup. Now, with the iPhone 14 just being about a month and a half away, many people are wondering what features it will have to set it apart from the 13. Now, the first thing is, and I showed this earlier this week, with 9to5 Mac, they discovered in iOS 16 that the wallpapers appear to have an always-on display mode, where they're multi-layer vector wallpapers. So if we press play here, you can see it sort of goes to an always-on display mode, similar to that of the Apple Watch, where it goes to sleep, dims a little bit, and then is ready to go for that. However, this does not appear to be something that will be coming to the iPhone 13 series. I think Apple could do it, but I think it's going to be a 14 Pro and Pro Max exclusive, but we'll have to wait and see what they do. Hopefully that's not the case, but I do expect them to do that. Also, according to Shrimp Apple Pro on Twitter, the upcoming iPhone 14 models, such as the 14 and 14 Plus, the larger size that we're expecting, are expected to have A15 CPUs similar to that of the iPhone 13 models. However, they are expected to get a performance boost due to other things such as a cellular data improvement with cellular modems, a new internal design, and different chipsets. So we could see an improvement there. It could be even RAM and more. So despite it having an A15, it is still expected to be faster, where the Pro models would have an A16 processor. Also, Ming-Chi Kuo has already stated that the iPhone 14 production is underway and apparently was having some issues with production of the rear camera lens cracking. So we're expecting a larger 48 megapixel camera, and some of the lenses were apparently cracking. Issues like this are fairly common early on in production and shouldn't affect overall production, according to Kuo. So that's pretty typical. They've run into issues, correct those issues, and then get them ready, with millions of them ready to go on launch day. So we'll see all of that in just about a month and a half. And so that's everything this week for news, tons of different things, big earnings for Apple, and of course those iOS 16 updates probably coming very soon. Let me know what you're most excited for in the comments below, and do you think iPhone 13 will get an always-on display? I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.